So we're back to part two of this video. So one thing I forgot to mention in the previous one is ragging, if you remember. So we're gonna come back to ragging. I think there are different ways to do it, but I wanted to remind you of that shortcut if you were wondering about it. So Option Command X creates a non-breaking space, which is in a PC Alt Control X. So that allows you to create kind of a sticky space between two words. And if I also go under type, so let's say I have my cursor here after subjects. If I go under type and then insert special character, hyphens and dashes, you have a non-breaking hyphen, which is similar, or under, I think it's white. Okay, so it's under white space. Insert special character or insert white space. Insert white space, I can do a non-breaking space. So you can also do that from up here. And then to see what you're doing, so you can see all this specific points, you can go under type and then at the very bottom, show hidden characters. And I'm in preview, so I didn't see it. So if I hit W, now I'm no longer in preview. So I can kind of see what's going on. I can see that I have a non-breaking space here. And then, that's really useful to know. Sometimes if you're like, why is my line ragging weird? I can remove them. And I think some of these, I didn't put them there. So it's possible they were in the code of the website. It's a little confusing how they got there. But again, I could see, okay, here I hit enter. Maybe I wouldn't want to do that if I was designing this. I would not do that, and I would use space before instead. Another thing that I forgot to mention about this first part is how to create guides, just basic guides. So I can here pull just from the top, or I could pull from the side as well if I wanted to, align everything on this line for some reason, which I could do. So I would, I could indent everything in this way. I don't know. So that's just so you know that's there. But I can kind of then zoom in and really make sure this wasn't well aligned. So now I can make sure that these lines are actually aligned to one another. And I could make sure the spacing between this paragraph here and this left panel are the same, because I want things to be aligned on the baseline as much as possible. So we'll go back into that when we're going into more detail, but these are useful things to know. So I'm just trying to adjust, trying to figure out, okay, this is over here. How could I make them be the exact spacing I want? So you can go in and change things around. But anyway, maybe I want actually more space and it's coming onto the next line. But this is something in typography you want to have often things aligned to one another in some way. It creates extra clarity, and it's a useful tool visually, so our eyes are able to kind of have a clear there's alignment is nice. It creates harmony visually. So these top two are aligned and these aren't, and you can kind of tell the difference. Okay, so I'm just hitting W back and forth so I can see what I'm doing without, I don't want to see those lines all the time, my guides and everything. I want to see, okay, what does my project actually look like? I'm just hitting W on my keyboard, and then I can see it much more clearly. Okay, so now let's go into the kind of, I guess maybe we should do the grid first. So we'll go into creating a grid. So I'll go in pages. So remember, I'm always creating new pages no matter what. So when I'm gonna do anything new, I'm not gonna delete what I'm doing or create a new document unless it's a fully different concept. So if I was going to make something else that is, if I'm, for example, if you're working on your posters, you could probably do it all in the same InDesign file. If your file gets too crazy, you might want to have multiple files, or if you're changing formats or anything like that. But usually on one project, I'll have one file for at least a large number of pages, like 50 if I'm making posters. And then if there's a break where I'm like, okay, on this date I worked on this and that's where my progress was on this date, I'll save that and then I'll make a new one for a new date. Anyway, so here I'm just going to make a new page. So I could just duplicate my page by holding wait, it's not letting me. Holding Option, which I believe is Alt if you're on a PC. So you just hold it and it creates that little plus sign. And if I hold my first one, I can place it, so either it goes all the way at the end, but it's copying everything exactly where it is, so which is nice if I then want to try something like, what if I move this slightly down? I can just try it without needing to go and copy everything and paste everything. I just automatically do it by duplicating. If you want to duplicate it into a specific location in your board, so you want it to be next to the first one, you can, if you hold Option or Alt and you go where this little line appears, you can place it there. So that's just an FYI. So if you just drag it, it'll go to the very end of your pages. But sometimes for me, I like having things that are similar to one another around, in the same kind of area. But I could also now click on this page and bring it back up here. Okay, so now let's create a grid. And actually, when you're working on a book, you probably would use a grid also, but we didn't for this because that's we'll get there. So here's my page. I can change, so right now I have a margin, I can't remember what it is, so let's go look. So if I go under File, Document Setup, I can see it's 0.5 inches, and I can change it from here. Let me see. Yeah, I can change it from here, and I can also change it from margins and columns. So I'll just do that because that's what I showed in class. I just go under Layout, Margins and Columns, and then I can change what I want my margin to be. And basically what that is saying is you're creating a system for yourself for how you're working, and it'll be more relevant, I think, in a way for the book, like especially this aspect, or when you're setting larger amounts of type, because you want to have your type not go all the way to the edge of the page, but you can decide if you want a really tight margin or a larger one. And you can also, if you unclick the little chain length here, you can have different margins on different sides of your document. And again, when I'm wanting to shift things faster, I can hold Shift and click, and that'll go in larger increments. Whereas if I just click, it's going in smaller increments. Okay, so here's my margin. Maybe I'll reset it to something more normal. I'll make a tight margin for this because it's a poster, even though this is a tiny poster. It's just a letter sized. You can also put columns here, but that's more useful for when you're flowing text, so I'm not going to do that now. I'll show that again later. Okay, so then now I want to create my grid. I go under Layout, Create Guides. I have to drag, it's on my other screen, so here we go, Create Guides. And then right here I can start adding guides, and I can put more rows, so up and down, and you can alter the gutter size, so that's the size between the lines. So you could have no gutter and they're just lines, but usually if you're setting something that's type, you want some space between the two things, so it allows you to kind of maintain a little bit of white space between whatever you're going to put on your page. And then again, same with columns, I can put as many as I want. And what's useful to note is, even if you make a grid that has a lot of columns, when you're setting, if you're typesetting something, you don't have to have everything be only one column. So it could be that you have some information that's one column and some information that's 2 or 3 columns. So basically more columns allows you to, it's kind of like a multiplication, right? I could have 4 or I could have 8. And then if I do 8, then I can kind of decide if I use I could still just use 4 if I wanted to, like go 2 columns every time, but then in some instances just go 1. So yeah, we'll keep working with columns as we go. I'll just do 5 for this. I don't know, I don't have a plan, so I'll just do this and then I can always adjust it later. So then now if I wanted to duplicate, so now you see that I only applied these guides to this page. So I could just duplicate them, and then I have 2 pages with these exact same guides. Or I could create, in this page, a whole new system. Create guides, and I could make that one, you know, really different or tiny or whatever I feel like trying. And I can change it to fit the guides to margin or to the page. That just means it's kind of going off the page, which could be useful for a poster, but if for typesetting book or something where we don't want the words to go off the page, we wouldn't do that. But in a poster, you could have images or something. We're not doing images now, but you know, you could have instances where things come off the side, and that would be okay. Okay, so then now within my grid, I can start setting things in different ways, and it gives me an organizing principle. Let's just go here and copy portraits of strength so I have something to work with. Portraits of strength. I'll make that the height of the column. I can adjust the size of my paragraph. Oh, and one thing, I hope you remember, you can snap the paragraph to itself. So if I don't want this kind of text box to be so wide, Option Command C or Control Alt C. And if I were to now have, let's say I made this text really huge, 500 point. Okay, maybe that's too huge. I'll make that 300 point. I can also hold, okay, it's still too huge. I'll do it 100 point. Wait. It's not working. Okay, forget I said that. So you can just drag that out for now. There should be a way where it automatically snaps, but okay, I'll undo that. So I'm back to my grids. Here we go. I could have things use the height. So let's say maybe I want portraits to be, I'll take of strength away. I could have portraits be the height of this whole column or row. And you can use visually because, you know, in this case my typeface is rounded, so if I actually just go to this corner here, it's too big, so it doesn't fit, but visually it's fitting, so you can work on it that way. So here's my portraits, and I could also have it go, let's say, off the side of the page, and then duplicate it and have it come back here on this side of the page, let's say. So now there's just like a guiding principle for everything I'm doing by using a grid. Yeah, and you guys will figure, I mean, I think that it's fairly straightforward, but basically the grid, the main point of it is just to have elements talking to one another in some, you know, semblance of, there's some kind of guides, something that helps you decide where things go. And even if you do something really free-flowing, but you use a grid, it'll feel like things make sense. So I could have, right, these are all kind of aligned at the top. So somehow I have something to work with that makes some sense. Okay, so that's grids. Not super exciting how I'm describing it, but it is a very useful tool. So definitely try and use them in your posters, at least in some of them. Even if you end up breaking the grid, use it. Okay, so now I'll also show you, and, you know, think about things can go in other directions than you might think. So I can make something bigger by holding, this is kind of complicated, holding, well, no, Shift and Command at the same time. So Shift and Option in a PC, or no, Shift and Alt. When I drag this, but I'm holding these things, it's going to make the whole word bigger instead of just making the text box bigger, which if I normally just drag, that's what happens. So then I kind of have, I can have different elements. They don't need to all be going in the same direction. So here we go with, I'll have another one here that's big. Okay, it didn't work. I'll just duplicate this one. And I can align them in a different way. This great strength. Or we could do, maybe it'd be better if they're all aligned this way. And then I could have a secondary information on the left. I think because I've aligned things to the page here, this is a little bit more difficult. It'd be better to have aligned it to the margin. So if I brought this over here on this grid, I would do that differently. Anyway. Okay, so that's the grid. If you guys want to make a weird diagonal grid, which is definitely an option, but it's a bit more of a DIY one, you would create a line by drawing it. So maybe I'll duplicate this grid and then remove my type. So if I wanted to just remove the type, this grid is locked, but you can also unlock. So you can do Option Command, so Option Command or Alt Control plus L. L is for locking. So if I then Option Command L, these are unlocked, which means I can delete them. And then if I select them again, I can do Command L. Now they're locked. So I can't actually delete them, which is nice. So in this case, let's draw a line for making our diagonal grid. So I'll just draw a line, I don't know, following my grid this way. And if your line didn't have a stroke, like if you did that and it was totally transparent, you can click on it, you know it's there, and then just come in here under in properties and add a point and make your stroke color. Maybe I want to extend it beyond the page just because I know I'm going to duplicate it. But then, you need to first duplicate it. So in order to do that, you're holding Option. So I'm holding Option, which is Alt on a PC. And then I could just come over here and put it on this next line on the grid. So, you know, I'm intersecting with my grid. So I have to first be doing what action I want the computer to recreate. So I held Option and then I duplicated it. And then I can tell the computer now do this again every time. So I will do Option Command and then hold 4, which would be on a PC, Control, Alt, and 4. So I need Control, Option, Command, 4. So it'll just go exactly where you put it. So you see it's like on my grid because I did it that way. And then my issue is, you know, I did it over here, so I have to go back up there. So I could just keep going but it's gone off the sides. So you'll have to work that out for yourself, how you would draw that. You could just come back and draw this last one manually, but just be aware that there are limitations with doing it this way just because it's, you know, it's DIY. One thing I might do, I'll just redo this again. If I was doing this, I might draw a really long line and then start over here. Obviously, if you're worried about following the grid, that wouldn't work too well. But I could, you know, draw my line over here, figure out what direction I want it to go in. So I'm following this grid right here. And then I would bring it all the way out here before duplicating it. And and then I would do my action over here, and then, oops, sorry, Option Command or Alt Control 4, and then I know it's going to go all the way over my document. So in this case, I wasn't able to align it to the grid, but you know, just so you have a sense of how you would do that. And so now I could potentially, if I wanted to, then I would lock all of these. Maybe I'll make them a different color so I know they're kind of a guide and not a real thing. I'll make them, in my drop down, I can go down to RGB color mode, and I'll make them a neon green, so it's different from my current guide color. And then I'll lock them. So Command L or Control L. So now I can't just go moving them around, they're truly guides. And then I could bring this over here. I'll just copy it. And then if I want to turn it, I just go to the edge of my text box and turn it. And then I have to just really manually, slowly see that my line is aligned. Okay. And then, you know, if you're doing motion, you could think about maybe you don't have the lines be exact, like you could have them, I could have them slowly moving out into an angle. But anyway, that's not what we were doing here, but there's definitely options for how you would do this. Here's this. So very manually, this great strength. I don't know why that's what I wrote, but that's what we have. So here we go. If I decided this is my design, I can then, my trick is I'll click these things. So these things are selected. Then I'll do Option Command L. Well, actually, I don't know. No, I'll have to manually remove the correct ones, but not the thing that I actually want to keep, which is my type. So you have to be kind of mindful when you're doing that. Okay, so now I have everything on a diagonal grid. Okay, I'll make another video for the next part, which will be if you wanted to minus front things, that's what I call it, but use the Pathfinder panel. Trying to think if there's anything else I'm supposed to show you, but we'll see. Okay, so that's kind of the basic grid situation. Oh, type on a line. I'll show that in the next video as well. Okay,